Hello, thanks for watching. In this video, I'll break down settings for repetier for a Davinci 1.0 printer running repetier version 0.92. These settings will be a combination of, speed and high quality. Like when I say high quality, if you're just coming from default XYZ, crapware, you're going to be just amazed at how well these come out. And it'll only print well, no. How about no? It'll print maybe a bit slower in some situations and faster in others, but it'll print much, much nicer every single time. So let's just get to the settings. Yeah, sorry about the printer noise. I'm sure you can hear that. It's kind of just like, sounds like a crashing airplane sometimes. Makes squeaking noises. I'll show that in another video and how to fix that. But anyways, where are we? Alright, so layers and perimeters. Layer height 0.2 gives you a nice, very smooth finish. First layer height 0.3. You want to do that just so it sticks to the bed a bit better. Nothing much to say on that. Just leave this at 2. It's basically default. Most printers do it. There's not too many situations where you want to change that. Top 3, bottom 2. You can change this. Oh, thank you, airplane. Anyways, it doesn't really matter to me. So I'll leave it at that. And leave these like that. Nothing to break down there. Infill 10%. Totally up to you. You can set it to hollow if you want. You can set it to 5, 15, whatever. Honeycomb, basically what you're going to want to use in most situations. Pretty efficient and pretty strong. Yeah, just leave this as rectilinear. Yeah, that's all there's to say about that. These are basically default. Alright, the speeds. Perimeters 40 millimeters a second. You might have seen my other video, but that was basically a 40 millimeter a second perimeter. It's not exactly slow. Like if there's a slow, medium, and fast, it's like a medium fast maybe. But it does come out looking nice. Small perimeter 70%, external perimeter 70%. Leave it at that. It's still pretty fast, but in certain situations you want to go a bit slower than 40, or else you're going to have messed up looking parts. Infill 60 millimeters a second. That's actually pretty fast. If you haven't seen my other video, you're going to want to look at it. It's just insane. Like, it flies over the infill, doesn't waste any time there. Solid infill 75%, a bit slower, just in case, for instance, you're trying to print something solid in certain areas, and if you do it fast, it might warp or it might bulge or do something weird and make your part look funny, which of course you don't want to do. Alright, top solid infill, same thing, except slower because you definitely don't want bulging at the top. Support material 20 millimeters a second. This is slow. I do it slow for a reason. If you don't do it slow, you might have issues. There's a big maybe here. Basically, the supports, they're usually thin. It might be like 2 millimeters by 4 millimeters or even less, And I'm not sure if you've ever had this happen to you, but let's say your printer misprints. It prints into the air. It just lets a strand of filament into the air, and then it'll just ruin your whole print. I do support material slow just because that's one of the easiest things for your printer to mess up. It can go faster, like for instance, 30 is faster and it's still pretty decent. It's a little bit less safe, but not many people are freakish when it comes to supports like I am. 30 or 40 will probably get you by just fine. Support material interface 75%. You want to slow it down because when it's interfacing with, let's say, your main part, you want it to print nice and slow so that it doesn't damage your part. You don't want any unnecessary connections or misprints or anything like that. Bridges and gap fill, I honestly have no clue what those are. I've never seen it print bridges or gap fill. So I set it really slow, whatever. I mean, if I pay attention, maybe I'll see it barely moving when it's printing and I'll know it's a bridge or a gap. Travel 175. This is insane travel. You probably don't want to do it because it does put stress on your printer that, is unnecessary. Something like 130, still pretty zippy and not as dangerous. First layer speed 50%. Gonna want it. Well, that's actually a bit fast. 20 or 30% is safe. Nice and slow so that that first layer, the all-important first layer, is done correctly. If your first layer messes up your print. If you print too fast, it might warp. And then it'll print the first 20 or 30 layers fine, and then you realize that your part's not coming out right, and then that's some wasted filament. So 20, 30, maybe 40%, 50% if you have a perfectly aligned or a perfectly calibrated bed, which I do, and you know how your printer works. Oh, that brings me back to travel. You can set it higher if you're familiar with maintaining your printer, such as tightening your belts, tightening or torquing, rivets and nuts and stuff like that. Rivets, whatever. Alright, nothing left in speed. Yeah, just leave that all at 0 and you're good. Skirt and brim. One loop for the skirt. Don't really need two, it's pointless. You just want the skirt just to show that your printer is printing correctly. For instance, if it starts to print a skirt and the skirt's lifting off the bed, you know that you're about to have a nice warped piece. So you cancel your print. Distance from object, this doesn't really matter. I set it to 6, just because I sometimes print multiple parts on one bed at the same time. Skirt height, skirt height 1 millimeter, or 1 layer. Sorry. Don't really need to do 2. Pointless. Extrusion length, I don't think it matters. Just set it to 10. Brim 2 millimeters. You're gonna want to do brim, especially if you're using supports. We still have rafts to talk about, but we'll put that on hold for a minute. You're going to want to do brim just because it supports the supports. You put on brim and it'll stop supports from peeling off easily within the first couple layers of printing, which of course ruins your whole print. Brim's also just good in general for most parts, especially thin ones. So you want to set this anywhere from 2 to 6, depending on what kind of part you're printing. Most of my stuff, I only need 2, honestly. Support material, this is of course if you want support material. Like for instance, here I have support material. As you can see, 2 millimeters of brim, and then there's a raft right there. We'll talk about that in a bit. And then just massive nasty ass support shit going on there. Anyways, overhang 30. Let me show you what that looks like when it comes to slicer. Looks something like that. 30 is pretty much the limit of what your printer cannot print without support, so that's what you want to set it to. Some people do 45 with mixed results. 30 is pretty safe. Alright, and for support, for the first 0 layers, whatever. Raft layers, this one varies. Some people don't need a raft. I do use rafts. I use rafts every single time for a couple reasons. One, it can give you a nicer, well, depending on, yeah. Sometimes it can give you a nicer, I'm not sure what it's called, plane edge surface, whatever, on your part. Because you can peel the rafts off, which is pretty cool. I didn't know that going in. I'm new to 3D printing. But yeah. So rafts gives your print support, as you probably could figure out. Gives it support, helps it stick to the table. What the heck? Stick to the table, the bed, sorry. And it's also kind of like, how do I call it? Kind of like a canary in a mine shaft. The raft will fail before your print fails, you know? So it does take a bit to print a raft, so I would say set it to 1, unless you're doing some specific thing that needs to. It'll print the raft, and if you see the raft starting to peel, you know, you're going to want to cancel the print, clean your bed, start over. Anyways, rectilinear, normal 2.5 millimeter. Depends on what you want to do. Like for instance, let me show you. That's 2.5. Some people might consider that a bit dense. Honestly, it might be. It might be a bit unnecessary for it to be that dense, just for some crap that's, you know, going to the top just to support it. You know, um, I'd say anywhere from 2.5 to 5, depending on what you're doing. Interface layers 2. Don't really need more than that. Less than that can kind of be a pain in the ass, you know. Other than that, there's not much in this, not much here. First layer, 200%, whatever the heck that is. Whatever. Filament settings, of course, it's 1.75 for the diameter, and the extrusion multiplier will be 0.91. Oh, yes, bed temperatures. Depends on what you want to do. 220 to 230 works wonders. Like if you're coming from a default Davinci, you're gonna just be like, wow. It's as if like it at first it was like printing, you know, like Play-Doh or something coming out of a little, you know, the little press things that used to come in. And this is like someone took clay and sculpted something out of it. It comes out very, very nice. You want to set your bed temperature higher, like 100 to 105, maybe 90, if you're uncomfortable with that, you know. Um, let's see. 105, the first layer works. It helps, it definitely does help with the sticking to the bed. Assuming you're using a glue stick, of course, which you probably should be. And 100 for everything else is fine too. Cooling, did I touch cooling? I can't remember. Yeah, it should be the same. Anyways, printer settings, Z offset. I'll just leave that alone because that doesn't really matter. That just depends completely on your printer. Like for instance, if you're having trouble leveling the bed, like there's too much of a gap, but the gap is uniform all around, you can simply set this to a negative little number and it'll decrease the gap between the extruder and the bed. G-code flavor, rep wrap, of course. Extruder is 1, vibration limit 0 megahertz. I haven't changed that. Custom G-code I believe this is default. Yeah, I believe that's default. Alright, nozzle diameter 0.4. Retraction length 1.5. You definitely do want to retract because if not, it'll kind of spiderweb between travels. So, 15 millimeters a second of speed, and yeah. Alright. No. Oh, I mean, yes. Whatever. Alright, so basically here's where you connect to your printer. I'll show you that. Probably should have shown you that first. When you're trying to connect your printer to repetier, you might have an issue where you have to mash OK repeatedly for it to do anything. These are the settings that you use for just general connection with the USB cable. The COM port changes. If you've gotten this far, you know what a COM port is. So set it to your COM port, set it to the baud rate that's shown on the printer in settings, or around settings, you know. Repetier protocol, do a whatever native USB port, set emergency command and reconnect, and 202. Make sure it's 202. Ping pong communication isn't necessary, but I use it just in case the printer starts acting weird sometimes. It's kind of just like a, hey, print this section. Okay, I printed this section, and then it sends the next section kind of thing. This stuff doesn't really matter. I'm just going to show it to you just in case. Max extruder temperature 240, max bed temperature 120. Keep it like this just in case there's a runaway thing going on. Alright, bed shape. Classic printer, min. 0, 0, 200, 200, 0, 0. 200, 200, 200. There should be something somewhere for... yes, down here. You need to check these boxes, because it makes it much easier to use the manual control, which you might occasionally. If you don't check these boxes, you have to hit this to make the bed go down, and it's just counterintuitive. Other than that, that's it, I believe. You can modify the settings to make it a bit faster. Right now I print medium speed, I would say. This is medium speed, and it prints just magnificently. Yep, so thanks for watching. Happy printing.